Hello and welcome to a short video demonstrating how to insert and edit floor cassettes within the framing application. For this demonstration, I'm going to show you some basic functionality of inserting cassettes, editing them, and inserting openings, and finally producing a manufacturing drawing. In order to insert a cassette, you will need to go to the flooring pull-down menu, floor cassettes, and then select Insert Rectangular Cassette. You should now be presented with a palette which allows you to configure the cassette you would like to insert. I'm going to talk through some of the main options that are available to us. To start with, we can choose the material set. The material set can be one that you've configured yourself, or you can choose one of the defaults. From the material set, the components are then defined. Here we have the standard joist, which is 45 by 145, and this is selected as the internal joist. We can choose the component count and then the centers. We also have the option to use a global setting out point, as well as we can define the cassette edges, that is the parallel and non-parallel components. We can choose from a range of joists, from I-beam all the way to standard joists. And then we can define the component count on that as well. This can be done for the parallel and non-parallel components. We can then go on to decking. First of all, the floor decking can be defined. We can set this to ceiling or floor decking, and this material is defined within the material set. We can choose the direction, whether to be parallel or perpendicular, the tolerance, and then we can choose to stagger the floor decking as well. We can also choose to rotate if it's less than half the width, and we can also disable rotating if you have any tongue and groove joints, so you might want to disable rotating. We have the exact same options for the ceiling decking that is available here. We can also choose to show any orientation markers, and we can choose to have a separate setting out point for the decking as well. If we go to the insulation tab on the left hand side, we can choose our insulation type from fiberglass, rigid or blown, and then we can choose the material and then the tolerances that we can apply to that. If we go over to the nailing tab, we have our perimeter centers and intermediate centers for the floor decking, and then the same for the ceiling decking. This information is then carried out to any machine links. Finally, we also have noggings here as well, which we can define. We can choose the position, midpoint, third point, quarter points. We can then choose the centers and the material itself. So we have 140 by 38, which is C16, and we can choose what type of nogging to use, an I-beam nogging or full depth nogging or floor nogging. Now I can minimize the palette and draw my cassette. I'll need to select 2 points, the span direction, and then finally the setting out points. Just before your cassette gets inserted, you have another option to edit components and types and apply any oversells to your edges. But I'll leave the options as is because I've set up the cassette in the palette previously. You should now see your cassette created within the model space. As you can see, we have not just drawn lines, but we've actually created 3D objects. As I hover my mouse over the decking, you'll see it highlight on the left hand side. If I remove the decking so you guys have a better view of the joists, you should then be able to see the same behavior as I hover over the joists. We can also draw non-rectangular cassettes as well. The process is identical. However, instead of selecting 2 points, you can select as many points as you'd like, and then you can close the cassette. Once we've drawn our cassette, we can edit the boundaries by selecting the cassette and going to the right-click menu, Floor Cassettes, and then selecting Edit Boundary. The cassette should disappear now, and this is so you can edit the boundary more easily without having too much on the screen at once. We can use the grip points to adjust the boundary. And once we are done, we can go back to the right-click menu, Boundaries, and then click Accept Edit. We can also edit the cassette by selecting the edges by selecting the arrow, and then using the grip point in order to adjust the size of the cassette. We can also use the blue grip point in the middle of the cassette in order to move it as well. We can also copy the cassette using the standard AutoCAD copy command. We can also make use of the AutoCAD mirror command as well. Openings can be inserted into cassettes within a few clicks. You can do this by going to the Flooring pull-down menu, Floor Openings, and then selecting Insert Rectangular Opening. You should then see the palette appear on the left-hand side, where you can configure the parallel and non-parallel edge components. You need to select 2 points in order to insert the opening. You should now be able to see on the left-hand side the cassette has now an opening, and all the internal joists have adjusted to accommodate this opening. We can also insert non-rectangular openings, and the process is identical. However, instead of selecting 2 points, you can select as many as you like. Once you have inserted your opening, you can then adjust the size by using the grip points. We can also use the center grip point in order to move the opening as well. Just how we can copy and mirror cassettes, we can do the same for the openings as well. Once we have finished creating and editing our floor cassette, we can then produce a manufacturing drawing, which can then be plotted to be sent to the production line.